So it says property of Marvel Studios.
Welcome to the Nerd Social. I'm Nathan.
And I'm Condra.
So we're going to talk about Star Trek Discovery Episode 5 of Season 4, which is entitled The Examples. We are a few days out from when we were planning to do this, but we had some technical difficulties in the week. So we're going to talk about the episode as always before the next episode rolls around. So the spoiler-free description of this episode is Burnham and Book race to evacuate a group of stranded colonists in the anomaly's path as one of the Federation's brightest scientists comes aboard the USS Discovery to do high-stakes research with Saru and Stamets. So, Conjure, what did you think of this episode this week?
Yeah, I really enjoyed this episode. It's sort of continuing in the vein. You see a little, well, this is everything I think in this episode is more directly related to the DMA, but we learn a little bit more about the origins of the
Mm-hmm.
DMA, or at least, I guess, what it's
Yeah,
not,
right,
right? So we still don't know exactly what its
right.
origin is, but we get some pretty disturbing information about its
Mm-hmm.
origin. And there's another, side mission directly related to the DMA, and it sort of harkens back to, uh, TNG, like original away missions, and you get to see Book and Burnham
Mm-hmm.
interact more in the way that they were interacting when she, or sort of when they were going about trying to find, oh gosh,
The burn things for the burn.
OTAC,
Yeah, things.
right?
Yeah, yeah,
Preparation
yeah.
from the burn. So that was enjoyable and more about, the ethics and the morals of the Federation and how it operates with non-federated states. That's always those the moral dilemmas that Starfleet officers always encounter. So yeah, it was an enjoyable episode.
Yeah, I enjoyed the episode as well. I'm making sure that we actually are streaming properly.
Question.
We are streaming. It's just that I'm getting a lot of red notices here that it's dropping frames, which gives me a concern that it's streaming, but streaming at a low bit rate for some reason. Um,
Okay.
are you connected to the on the internet? Can you see us?
I had not because my connection is not the greatest out
Okay.
here.
Let me. Yeah, I will cut this later on, but I want to make sure that we don't talk for an hour and it's like the quality of
Have it, have it be our
yeah, the
last
quality of
episode.
video is like this later on, but I want to make sure that we don't. It's like the quality of
Have it be our
yeah,
last
the quality of
episode.
video is like this. I want to make sure it's like the quality of
Be our last.
it's looking. It's looking like it's streaming, but I think there's just like missed frames. It's not terrible. It's looking. It's not terrible. All our audio is getting through. There might be some drop frames of our
Okay.
video, so we can continue. I'll cut that out. I'll edit that out later on. All right. So yeah, I like the episode as well. I think this is probably my favorite episode of the season so far. Partly because the storylines were far more constrained in this episode,
Mhm.
and partly because of like the writing as well. Like I really appreciated the away mission that Book and Burnham go on that was mentioned in the spoiler free conversation, and we do have technically we have three plots in this episode. but really it's more like two, and a very small
Hmm.
C plot. So that also helps focus the episode. I think my second favorite episode was probably another one that was fairly constrained. The second one when they went to the anomaly earlier in the season, episode two. So yeah, I there's a moral dilemma in the middle of this that kind of kind kind of goes back to the conversation in the first episode, Kobayashi Maru, and you can see Burnham growing
Hmm.
as a captain because she makes a different choice here than she did back in the first episode. So that's also pretty interesting, also to see. So without, I guess, further ado, what we should do is start jumping into the episode. I have some screenshots here, but before I do that, please comment to join the conversation and like and subscribe to get more conversations like this, and we appreciate it. I'm gonna spoilers ahead. Um, there we are. Spoilers ahead. Um, Animation didn't start when I wanted to. Okay. All right. So jumping over to our our screenshots here. What I'm going to do is actually talk through this. We can talk through this through CB and then A. So the C plot is basically Culber and his
Hmm.
issues as counselor. So he's taken on quite a bit as the counselor of the ship, and you get a hint of the fact that he's straining a little bit. I think two episodes back, or maybe it was one episode back when he was counseling Book. Like he almost let out that he was struggling as well, but he didn't. And I guess we actually get that information in this episode. Stamets asks him here at the beginning of the episode if there's anything he wanted to talk about, and he said it's fine because he's concerned about his workload. Stamets expressed some concern about his workload, and he said people need someone to talk to because there's a lot of things going on now, and he kind of pushes him off. But later on we see that he has a mini session with Kovich, or
Oh.
David Cronenberg, who's also a psychologist, as we saw from last year when he was evaluating Giorgio, and that's part of the reason that why he brought him in, because he cuts to the quick very efficiently. So
Hmm.
he brought him in. He said he was too busy, and he was like, you know what, I have 10 minutes. I'm very busy. Let's just do it. Um, and he basically surmises that the reason that he's struggling so much. I mean, Culber says that he's struggling because he thinks that he's failing, and I think Kovich says something to the effect that you want permission to me from me to say that you're failing so you can quit. Um, and I think his analysis of him is that he has not even really I was going to say survivor's guilt, but it's not even really survivor's guilt. He feels guilt because he has a second chance that no one else has had, and he
Yeah.
feels driven to he feels driven to um, work himself to
Mhm.
justify that second chance. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, because he never really worked through his coming
I mean,
back, right?
he
And it
talked
is
to the
very,
admiral for a little
yeah,
bit because if you remember, she
yeah.
was a counselor as well. She was a but that was like one session, and then a bunch of other stuff
Yeah.
happened. With
But this also makes me wonder, like, why is there just one ship's counselor, right? Like,
Yeah, I don't know.
there should, to be a team of these people because he's dealing with a lot. Because I mean, as we talk through this episode, they're evacuating people off of
Mhm.
a is it
It's an
meteorite belt?
asteroid belt. Yeah, asteroid belt. Yeah,
Asteroid belt. Asteroid
yeah.
belt, right? Taking on all of this, and it's a lot. It's too much for any single person to bear. But I will say I am glad that they are addressing. You sort of see him struggling and see him trying to work through this, or at least come to some sort of resolution, reaching out for help to
Yeah.
Kovich.
Um, yeah. There. I think his insight is great, but it's not clear where he's gonna. I don't know if he's going to reduce his workload or what he's going to do, because after this scene we jump. It's basically the end of the episode where we check in on this plot again, and he's talking to Stamets in his basically just decompressing from the day and explaining
Mm-hmm.
the insights that Kovich provided. But yeah, I don't know. Like this ship is a lot smaller than say the Enterprise D, Picard ship. But even Picard's ship only had one counselor for some reason,
Yeah.
which made no sense. Uh,
Yeah.
and and yeah, he has double duty as he's also a regular doctor also. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, they definitely he needs to get some more help, and maybe they will touch on that later on as well, because this was a very small plot in this episode
Mm-hmm.
they stuck in here. So that was the end of the C plot, and then the B plot is actually starts at the very beginning of the episode with the USS Janeway and the NSS T'Pau. So they're monitoring the DMA for changes, and also to monitor its path, and then it disappears.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yep. Which shocks everybody, right? Because here we are thinking that this thing, I mean, they don't fully understand it, but like you said, they're observing it and then it just,
yeah,
yeah, blips away and reappears
yeah,
elsewhere.
which is definitely not natural behavior for for an anomaly. So it disappears
Yeah.
for 4.2 seconds, and then it reappears 1,000 light years away from where it disappeared. And they kind of do a debrief on this, and it looks like what happened is what it seems that they all surmise is that it's not a natural phenomenon. Otherwise, it wouldn't be reacting like this. So they debrief at Starfleet or Starfleet headquarters, and
Hmm.
they come up with a plan to have a scientist come in and help them analyze the anomaly, analyze the DMA. I think his name is Ron Tarka.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tarka.
A
Yeah, a
rising science.
Rycian scientist who Stamets is familiar with, but doesn't necessarily feel great about, because apparently he's been trying to reverse engineer the spore drive. And he
Hmm.
not reverse engineer. He's trying to replicate the spore drive, and he hasn't. He's yet to actually talk to him. And Culber's like, there's a lot
Yes.
going on. Just put it behind you. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like it's not professional, right? It's professional courtesy. And then you also see in this Jett Reno is back in this episode, and I love the way she and Stamets like
Yeah,
their
yeah,
interaction is always just
yeah.
um it's just so funny, right?
Jett is always awesome. She's always she's always a treat just her. I think Tarka at some points calls her the grumpy lady. Yeah, later on, which is funny coming from him, because his personality is no treat either. Uh,
Yeah, she's not great. She's just, and I mean, at the end of this out, she's just very calm, right? And just always with the
yeah,
wisecrack. Um, yeah. But yeah, he shows up and he's I guess he's your typical
mad scientist or crazy,
uh mad
arrogant
scientist. Yeah,
scientist. I guess arrogant scientist. Yeah,
yeah, arrogant
yeah,
scientist, right? That
yeah,
trope and sort of insulting Discovery, calling it an
yeah,
antique
yeah.
type of thing.
And he
And yeah.
says, so Stamets. It's funny. He says Stamets. There's there's lots to learn, and you see Stamets' face here, and then a second later, a lot to improve upon. His face immediately after that is. It
Oh
was,
my God.
and then they're walking out. He's like, "You're the first Kelpian that I've seen," and then he says that you have weird feet. He has no tact at all. Uh,
Right, yeah.
and I guess and I guess that, like you said, that's a kind of a trope. Like, it's the super smart people that don't care what people think about them, because it's not like they can be replaced, right? They're indispensable in some in certain circumstances. So they can act however they want. So they try to talk through the DMA, and he's not really listening. And I think he asks for a replicator so he can show them his idea, because he obviously came there with an idea, not really interested in talking to them in the
Yes.
first place. So there's a device in the middle of the DMA he thinks is powering it and also controlling it, and that's what he shows with the mashed potato and the pea. And he has some
Hmm.
schematics to actually create a mini wormhole on Discovery. Now,
Yeah.
this I actually like this plot, but it doesn't make well, it's not very clear to me why this is being done on Discovery instead of a research facility within the Federation.
Exactly. Exactly. Like this whole, I was just like, oh, let's put the ship in danger. And so it was like, if you destroy the ship, you won't have the
Yeah,
data, right? Nobody will have the data because we'll
yeah,
be dead. It doesn't say it, but like that's what it comes down to. And they just sort of push and push to the limits, which, and that idea that, you don't learn anything if you don't
risk.
take
Yeah,
risks, right? But then how much risk is too
yeah,
much? And thankfully, well, I don't know. I mean, Jett gives
yeah,
Saru the kill switch to stop the experiment because this thing needs, and what they learn is that it needs a massive amount of
yes,
energy to
yeah,
operate, you know? And so it was a pretty dangerous experiment. And Stamets and Tarka just want to
mm-hmm.
keep pushing the limits, while Jett and Sarus are sort of the ones with the reins
Just the cut off the
to
power.
bring
Yeah,
it
yeah,
back
exactly.
from
So yeah,
from the edge and killing themselves.
yeah. So they actually
Yeah.
create. I mean, and this looks like, very much like the anomaly. They create a mini anomaly, and there's a containment field, which we've seen a lot inside of Star Trek, around the wormhole. But like you said, they don't have enough power to get the data that they want. So Jed is like, well, I guess we can pull power from the phaser array, and Saru is like, huh? He's like, how dangerous is that? He's like, what is,
So,
yeah, it's a 6 from scale from 0 to 1, 0 to 10. It's a 6. He doesn't want to do it, and then this guy from, I don't know, sure you saw the trailer last week, when they're
oh
yelling at each
yeah.
other. So
Mhm.
he gives the go ahead after this guy kind of challenges him, and he also says, "You might not like me, but I love me, so I don't want I don't want to die," which is funny.
But he said that, and I was like, but you're pushing to the
Yeah,
limit,
yeah,
right? Of something that you're learning about. Like you could die in like a blip. You don't, right? And before you even, or at the moment that you
yeah,
realize it, it
but
might be
yeah,
too late. So it's still like just this arrogance that, oh, I'm not going to do anything that puts me in danger.
yeah. It does. You
All
don't know
right.
that until you're already off the precipice, really.
And,
Yeah.
right.
So yeah, I feel like, yeah, he's definitely a risk taker, and he's definitely not going to. This is not the last we're going to see of him, and it is also very interesting that he comes from Ryza, which is not the personality that we've seen from Ryzans before. They're very hospitable and very accommodating, which is which is why
Planetary.
he's a very interesting character. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, as you said, they give it a little bit more power from the phaser array, but also Jett gave Saru a kill switch, and Saru also asked Zora to monitor the containment field, and it goes all the way down to 5% before he kills the experiment. I feel like even Saru let it get a little bit more closer than I would have, especially because it jumped
Yeah.
from like, I think it was like at 40%, and it jumped down to like 14%, and then jumped down to 5%. I don't think like it was too much of a jump between 40% and 15% for me.
Yeah, I think like 40, 20, and then either
Yeah,
10 or 5. But it dropped pretty
yeah,
quickly. Like yeah, it was not a
yeah,
steady
yeah. It was
decline,
definitely
you know.
exponential. I don't know
And
if
I feel
I
like
would have let it get down to 5 when I saw it jump from.
yeah, and when the conclusion that he draws at the end, I'm like, well, I feel like you could have figured that out. Like you didn't need to see that through to completion to know that the power that the ship was able to provide was, like whatever conversion.
Yeah,
Like you did, I don't think you needed to see that. Like you could have figured out an equation out or
yeah.
something like that before, um, and Jett at the end is like that's like the closest you've come to killing us all,
Saying
which
something. Yeah,
is
yeah.
pretty. Like you're just saying something. Like of all the
You
other
do.
times you've almost killed us, this is the closest, right? And it's like they didn't even realize, and maybe she saw something or whatever, and like, well, she was the one controlling how
Yeah,
much power, I guess, or pulling the power from
yeah.
other
It was
sources.
mostly
So
the
yeah,
containment field around the black hole. The black hole would have destroyed I mean, sorry, the
right,
wormhole would have destroyed the
yeah,
ship. If the containment field failed,
right.
it would have
Yeah,
destroyed the ship. So yeah.
yeah.
I think at the end of this timeline, or sorry, at the end of this plot, we have I guess a debrief with Stamets and Culber in their quarters. It's the same debrief as the other plot, so the same
Hmm.
conversation. And now he admires the guy, even though he's crazy. I guess just because I guess they're fellow geniuses or whatever. Um,
Yeah.
we get the very end of this plot at the end of the A plot, and we'll get back to that. But like you said, there's a conversation between Book and him, in Tarka, where he kind of says that he kind of figures out how big a energy source would be needed to actually create something in the actual DMA. But like you said,
Yeah.
I think they said so. He and Tarka lament that they didn't get the data that they wanted, but apparently Tarka did get enough data to figure out to at least. I
Right.
mean, maybe they wanted to get more information to actually try to figure out who made it, and maybe that's why they were trying to keep they wanted to keep pushing it, but they could push it somewhere else. They could you know
Yeah, but in that conversation with Book, he said, so I think we at the top it jumped over where the Admiral sort of names, or like they're speculating that there are only a handful of species that would have the capability of building
yeah.
something like this.
That was a yeah. I went over. I did a kind of gloss over that. So like at the very beginning, like this conversation at Starfleet Academy. So yeah,
Hmm.
there's actually quite a bit few Easter eggs. Even at the very beginning when we were talking about they have a ship named after Janeway, Catherine Janeway.
Yeah.
They have the
Oh,
USS, and usually the USS means United States ship or United Spaceship or United Starship. It's changed throughout the years. But what was interesting to me is they
yeah.
had the NSS, which I guess is the Navarre spaceship, or yeah.
I think that's
So
what it is. Yeah. And that was T'Pau,
T'Pau
right?
showed up in the original TOS episode, A Muck in Time,
Mhm.
and she also
Yeah.
shows up in a Enterprise episode as a younger woman, like during Archer's time. So that was
Yeah.
interesting, and they actually had some ships named after her in the TNG era as well. So T'Pau's name has actually come up a couple times. But like you said, at Starfleet Academy, sorry, at Starfleet headquarters rather, when they're debriefing with the admiral here, he mentions the Metrons, which are which
Hmm.
showed up in the TOS. They're like the toga, the white skinned toga people. I'm not sure if you saw that TOS episode. Then the scene,
Yeah.
which are the ones.
Yes. They, they force Kirk and the captain of another ship to like fight, and they whichever one wins, their ship is
Yeah,
saved, right? But they refer to both ships or groups of people as
yeah,
savages,
yeah,
right? We're a young, wild race.
yeah,
So yeah. So they like threw it back to some species that
yeah.
we that really haven't been
In a
mentioned
while.
very
Yeah. Then the
often.
scene are the ones who
Yeah.
brought a Janeway and the crew all the way over to the Gamma Quadrant. Um, and the Iconians were the ones who opened up had all those gateways. If you remember in TNG, the Iconians they were
Yes.
sort of supposedly like a lost civilization. Although the Iconians came up again in the Picard season because the Borg ship, the Queen's chamber, they seemed like they had an Iconian gate inside of her chamber. That's how they got from the Borg ship to over yeah.
Yeah.
And then they also mentioned the Q Continuum, who apparently
Hmm.
they haven't seen in like 600 years,
Yeah.
or they haven't heard from in 600 years.
Yeah.
So they're just calling it unknown species 10C right now, which is interesting.
Hmm.
But yeah, we don't know who it is, but we definitely know that it's not a natural phenomenon. At the end,
Right. And then Tarka, like he knew before he showed up that it wasn't any of these civilizations. So he also, I mean, y- you get the impression that he's holding
information, yeah,
back
yeah,
a lot. Like he has either information or some speculation, but ideas on who it might be, and he's not sharing it for
yeah.
whatever reason. And in that conversation with Book, like Book clearly doesn't trust him,
He doesn't trust him, but he
but
also so he doesn't trust him, but he also has some affinity with him because if you look, I mean, I can
Mhm.
go all the way to that conversation, even though it's at the end of plot A. So like here, you can say that he doesn't like him, but he also has the same sort of scar in the back of his head, which is I think something that you would get if you were like a prisoner of the Ambo train. Like they put like a chip in your head to blow you up. So like I think Book has the same thing in the back of
Mhm.
his head. So
Yeah.
I guess he's also probably gonna. He also said to Book that anger is a great emotion because it's productive.
Productive.
So yeah, I think they're definitely
Hmm.
going to be
Yeah.
linked in later on in the in future episodes.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's the end of plot B, and then plot C is at the same time at Starfleet. I keep saying Academy, Starfleet because Academy was in the previous episode. Starfleet headquarters. They get the information that this asteroid belt, which is called the Radvik 5, which is mostly inhabited by the Akali people, is in the path of the DMA.
Hmm.
So Burnham gets the mission to evacuate the asteroid because there's a chance that it will destroy the colony there. So she gets that mission while Saru is going to be while Saru was supervising the scientists, and she asked Book to go on that
Hmm.
mission with her. And there's a little bit of here. There's a little bit of interjection here from Lieutenant Commander Reese. He asked to
Hmm.
be assigned to help with the evacuation, so we get a little bit about his backstory here. Once they get to
Yeah.
the asteroid, and but before that, we get a conversation with the magistrate. So the Akali people, the last time we saw them was in an Enterprise episode. So the Enterprise, when they visited their their world, they were pre-warp, so they weren't warp capable yet. So I guess 900 years, more than 900 years, because Enterprise is actually before Burnham. So a thousand years in the
Yeah.
future, they're out in space now. But in that episode of Enterprise, the crew actually had to change their appearance and then blend in with them, similar to what TNG some of the TNG people did. So that's the last time we actually saw them, was a couple series back. Actually, I guess it was just the last series, because Enterprise was the series before Discovery. So this magistrate says that they were part of the Envil train and there are prisoners and they're not interested in freeing those prisoners. So
Hmm.
the
The
examples
examples.
exactly.
Yeah.
So Burnham and Book go on the mission to free the prisoners, and then Reese asks to help with the rest of the evacuation. And then when they're on the planet, we get the little bit of backstory from him, that his family was in the path of a hurricane, and they came and helped him, and
Yeah.
that's why he wanted to help. I've seen people online complain about the fact that we've already established that they have technology to control the weather, but I'm pretty sure that wasn't established until the TNG era. Like on Ryza specifically, since Ryza is in this
Mm-hmm.
in
Yeah.
this episode, they can control the weather. But that was TNG era, and Burnham and also Reese and anybody else on that ship would be like 200 or 150 years in the past from the TNG era. So it's possible that his
Yeah.
town was destroyed by a hurricane because they couldn't control weather back then.
Hmm. At least, yeah, or at least the it hadn't been
Right, or
perfected
it's
yet,
possible that
right?
he
So
wasn't on Earth. He was on a colony that didn't necessarily have the same technology that Earth had. So, like, there's all kinds of reasons why
yeah.
that's not an unplausible thing that happened to him as a child.
I think people forget that there's still natural disasters in these series because, right, like you said, not everybody has access to the same technology. Sometimes you're dealing with, weird phenomena on
Yeah,
different planets, so it's not
yeah.
unbelievable.
So they get to so after he says that, so like I like that they had this little bit about Reese, but like they need to do more with the bridge. I'm glad that they were so
Mm.
like I'm not I didn't say I'm not glad that Detmer and Owa wasn't there, and also Adira and Gray wasn't there, but the other episodes were less successful to me because they weren't as focused. I appreciate that this was more focused, but they do need to spend more time with the bridge crew,
Mhm.
the other bridge crew officers, so we can hear a little bit more about
Yeah.
what their deal is. And I feel like they are doing that little by little, bit by bit. A couple weeks ago, we heard a little bit about Bryce's windsurfing stuff, and we hear a little bit here from Reese. So
Yeah.
we'll see if we get more missions with them. So they are they get to the prison. All the guards have fled, but the automated systems are still on, and they they
Mm.
think they get approached by this beetle, which they realize very quickly isn't a real beetle because Book can't talk to it. So these are just drones, exploding beetle-looking drones. So they start to get attacked by these things, and then Burnham uses her tricorder to disable them
Hmm.
before they kill them. Inside, this is where we get, I guess, the bulk of, or the main moral quandary of the episode. Once they get to the actual prisoners in the facility, we found out that most of these people have done very, very minor things, but they are, like he said, they're
Hmm.
examples to keep people from doing anything, or keeping on the
Right.
right path. And this guy, Felix, is kind of speaking for all of them as a leader. Uh, Burnham says that she wants to let them get them out, but he wants some assurances that they're not just going to be put back into prison, right? Because they're being held
Yeah.
unjustly. And
Yeah. Like and burn so the decision to go there, right? Because the when the that magistrate talks to Burnham initially, then they realize that there's these six, and it's
Right,
just
six. Yeah,
six,
yeah,
right? Like it's not they're not trying to evacuate hundreds of prisoners, which makes the Akali's position seem
yeah.
even more absurd. Um, that um, she's already sort of made the decision to not abide by their
Right.
form of justice. So it's like that was the first like step. I mean, and maybe it seemed like a small
Yeah, the shoot.
um
Yeah, it was a small.
dilemma, but not a part of the Federation,
Yeah,
right? But it's still like, no, we're gonna go get these six people and not listen to you while we're also evacuating the
yeah,
rest of your people from this belt.
yeah. He said. I mean, at the
So
end, at the beginning, he says, "Our law-abiding people are standing by." I guess he doesn't necessarily have a qualm with them risking their lives to save these people, but like, he doesn't care about them. And we get a conversation with him at.
but I don't think they
Sorry.
I don't I don't think they inform the magistrate, do they?
Yeah,
Or
I think they do. They said that they're not going to. Well, maybe I don't remember. You watched this episode. You watched this episode
yeah.
more recently than I did. I know that they had the conversation, and he said, no, you're right." He just cuts off communication. He says, "Our law-abiding people are waiting," and he just cuts off communication, and then Burnham just makes the decision that she's not going to leave people behind. So no, he doesn't inform them.
Yeah.
So I guess this is somewhat going against their wishes. There would have been an argument about maybe all the attention should be on the law abiding if she had actually informed him. But yeah, she
Hmm.
kind of so like they're. I mean, I think their concern here that they're going to be locked up unjustly is valid, right? And also they don't know whether or not they're after the after DMA is actually going to take out the facility, or take out so them running
Yeah.
for it might be their best chance. So she looks up some uh, general orders, and I guess maybe she didn't know these because she's a new captain, that she can grant asylum. Uh,
I also imagine that Starfleet journal orders are like thousands and thousands and thousands of pages
yeah, yeah,
long, right? Like you want to be sure you get the
yeah.
right article, the right chapter, right article, um, correct,
Yeah, and I can
get it all
imagine there's
right.
there's there's lots of general orders that have been added in the 900 years since even if she was aware of them. I mean, I only know General Order 1 off the top of my head, which is the non-interference one. I know they have mentioned a
Yep.
bunch of other ones in Starfleet canon. I just can't rattle them off of my head. Um, I'm sure if this one existed previously, there's already an article in Memory Alpha, and if it didn't, then someone has already added it in Memory Alpha. So she says that she can grant asylum. So they're they're leaving, or they think they're leaving, and then apparently there's a biological scan on their that creates a barrier. So they use the same beetles to destroy the force field to escape. Uh,
Can we pause for a second to talk about how much effort this society put into
6 people,
imprisoning
yeah,
six people? Because and just like yeah, for really, because when they say like what their crimes are, you're
yeah,
just like, are you serious? You got an army of beetles. So they basically had to break
yeah,
into the prison, right? And then like buy all the sensors to detect if the prisoners escape the prison. And it's just like so um and I guess they feel like the trade-off is that they don't really need to police their
want
people
to go
because
there.
nobody
Yeah, yeah,
commits crimes. Because yeah, if you steal a slice of bread, like the sentence is the same. It's
killing someone.
essentially
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
you're
yeah,
locked
yeah.
up for the rest of your life, right? But like
It's overkill.
it's
It's
just it is, you know. Um And I guess somewhat analogous to how we treat people incarcerated. Like you just keep paying for your
Yeah,
crime, right? Even if you are released, in a sense, you keep paying for your crime. But yeah, it's just like this ridiculous amount of knowledge you
yeah,
use to keep six people.
yeah. It's and
Yeah.
this is a fairly large facility as well for 6 people. I guess maybe all the guards. I have no idea. It's if you look at the explosion on the outside for these 6 people, look how big this building is. Like the explosion. This
Yeah.
door is basically the door the size of like a large shed or aircraft carrier door. And then there's more building. There's several levels
Yeah.
of building, and all there's only 6 people.
Right. And then they still keep them in like a little itty bitty
Yeah,
cell.
yeah,
Like it's like they didn't even, yeah, it just says a lot about a society that, um, and to leave, people like this with
yeah,
no hope of being able
yeah.
to get out, right? Yeah, it's just like,
Yeah, I think one of them was
yeah.
like gambling or maybe making making counterfeit latinum,
Uh,
counterfeit latinum.
like, yeah, one was stealing food, one was counterfeit latinum, I think. One was counting cards, so I guess cheating at
Yeah,
a card game, and the Felix guy was the only one
actually
who
committed
was
a
there
serious crime. Yeah, yeah,
very first
yeah.
crime. Yeah.
So yeah, so speaking of him, they they get they get through by using the beetles to blow up the force field, and they get transported away. The other 5 get transported away. Um, and Felix stays behind because this is where we find out that he actually committed a crime and he wants to stay behind. And this is, like I said, this is where we see the little bit of growth from Burnham. She doesn't want to. She's not trying to save
Hmm.
everyone. She actually considers his wishes, and she says, we can't force him. It's his choice. It's not. It's one of these. Definitely one of these grayer episodes. I think if you watch the if you watch the Ready Room, Michelle Paradise mentioned it was their inspiration for like the way that they wrote this was similar to the was some TOS episodes where there's a very gray ending. It's not a absolute cut and dry black and white what someone should have done here. Um, so she
Yeah.
definitely does save most of the people, but she also can't force this guy, in her estimation, in her moral estimation, to do something against her will. Book's estimation, he just thinks that he's
Hmm.
like hysterical or whatever. Um, but she accepts his wishes and he gives her something that we found out what that is later on. So they transport up, and we find out that the DMA is going to in the path of the asteroid, so he's going to die. But he also tells them about his crime, which is basically killing someone who was giving him aid, to steal
Hmm.
little like trinkets. So that's why he wants to. That's why he feels like he should die. And he held on to
Yeah.
that artifact because it's really only important to the family. So he held on to it
Yeah.
to return it to the family. So so he dies, after. He doesn't die in a direct way from the anomaly, but I guess it creates enough gravitational, of a disturbance to push it into a nearby sun,
Just.
the nearby
Hmm.
star, and that's how he dies. So after that, she seeks out the person, the little girl, because the man had yeah the
The daughter of
yeah
the man who
the
that he killed.
the
Yeah.
the man had a daughter, and we see that she's an adult. Oh, sorry. Before that, we get this guy being upset that these people aren't in the break, and then she says, you were the magistrate of a colony that doesn't exist anymore. Um,
Right. Like you have other priorities right now. Like resettling your
yeah,
people should be your number one priority. Worrying about these people who who like you also have nothing and
Right.
nowhere to go. Right? It's just yeah, but it's like when I saw this, like I get the sense like when you've lost everything,
So
you want
your
to hold
structures, yeah,
on
yeah, your
to
yeah.
your structure. Yeah. So I could kind of see, him wanting to stick to it, and but appreciate Burnham being like you have no authority here.
Refugees, yeah.
You now have to rely on the grace of other people. So,
Hope, yeah, and
focus
hopefully you'll
on
find
that.
a society that's more just than the one that you created, or you helped create. I don't know
Mhm.
that he actually created it. I think that line would have been better if she said the society that you helped maintain, but I don't know. Because I get the sense that the Emerald Chain existed before he was born. He just
Yeah,
upheld the rules. But yeah,
yeah. And he saw like it worked, right?
it
In his
definitely
mind, it worked because had very little crime, um, or very little, fewer people were caught
right,
committing crimes, right? So it worked. So why mess with something
exactly,
that
yeah.
works?
Um,
But they're not. They're also the Kala and also not a part of the
no,
Federation,
so like
right?
I don't I don't get a sense that they are. Whenever they became warp
Yeah.
capable, I guess they were inside of maybe it took them another 5, 6, 700 years after Archer visited them to become warp capable. So whenever they became warp capable, they were in, I guess, Emerald Chain territory, because the first time we saw them was, like I said, they were pre-warp civilization, so they couldn't have been part of the
Mhm.
Federation because the Federation
Yeah.
didn't exist. Federation didn't exist until the end of that series. So I
Hmm.
don't know from this episode. This is the sense that I get, is that they're not. I don't know where their
Yeah.
actual world is, because like this colony was full of them. Like most of the people there were a colony. Although Felix he seemed to be human. Felix.
Yeah. He was
So
different. Yeah.
I don't know if their world is inside of Federation territory, and maybe this asteroid colony is outside of Federation territory. Because you got to imagine, like, just like the humans, throughout the TNG era, we would constantly meet other humans who were in colonies around the galaxy, like that left Earth.
Yeah.
So maybe this is just a colony that left
Yeah.
a colony, and they were in Emerald Chain territory, and maybe the Kali are part of the Federation, but you don't really get that information here, so I don't know. So yeah, as I said earlier, after this exchange, she seeks out the daughter and returns the thing, the artifact. But actually, before that,
Oh,
in the turbo lift to the daughter, she has this interesting exchange with Zora, who is like,
yeah.
she provides empathy for her, and then she's like, and Zora, and she says, I didn't know that you were capable of feeling empathy, and Zora's like, well, I guess it comes with emotion. It's like, okay, you can feel emotion now. So that
Yeah. It's like, do
feels
we want a
emotion,
ship
yeah,
that feels emotion? Because ship goes
yeah.
through a lot of
I don't
things,
know. Like, yeah, what if it?
you
I
know.
mean, it goes through a lot of things, and fear is one of the emotions that people have. So you don't want the ship afraid. What if it starts doing things because it's afraid?
Yeah. So
So
that was a very interesting moment. And Burnham, like you could sort of see her surprise, but she also sort of contained it because yeah, like they're obviously not used to having to
with a sentient
interacting
ship, yeah,
with yeah, with a sentient ship, and I feel like that just raises a whole lot of questions by itself, right? Because, sometimes they do make choices that result in damage to the ship. And sacrifices have to be made. And so now, if you're like, she's already having
the
to think
crew, yeah,
about
or the crew,
the lives,
yeah,
the
and
crew, right?
sometimes she has to make
Now,
decisions that would put the entire crew at risk, and they've
at the same,
signed up for this because they signed up for Starfleet, but like like Zora didn't sign up for Starfleet. What if the entire crew? What if the entire crew
Oh,
says we want to risk this because the risk outweigh the benefit, even though we know we're going to die, and Zora's like, I don't want to die. So it's like, I
right.
don't know.
Or she might just yeet herself into some other like ship, right? Because she's the operating system essentially, right? Maybe she just like
I
peace
don't know.
out
They tried
and
to remove the data from the ship before, and they couldn't.
it's true.
That's why they had to go to the future. So maybe she can't separate herself from because she's
Yeah,
mostly the sphere. She's mostly the sphere data. She's a consciousness that has arisen
yeah,
from the sphere data. So yeah,
yeah.
I don't know. It's definitely gonna be interesting.
Might be time to find a
Yeah.
new home. At, yeah. So I thought, yeah, that was an interesting
Yeah.
exchange.
Um, so I guess we find out at the end here that this is a family tree. And then she
Hmm.
thought it was lost, and she's very grateful here because she can add herself, but also you see here that she's pregnant, so she can add the next
Yeah.
generation as well. So it ends in a kind of like, I guess, sweet note, like a bittersweet note, because Felix is still dead. Eh, but yeah, and then we get the end here where Book is very upset about Felix dying,
Mm.
which is why I think that he's going to be very susceptible to Tarka here, in his suggestions,
Whatever he
whatever he
has
has
planned.
planned. Yeah, yeah. So that's the end of the episode. So what did you? I guess any other thoughts before we wrap up here?
Oh, I just, curious to get to the bottom of, I don't know how to feel about how, like now that we know the DMA
A,
is,
a
that
unnatural
there is,
phenomena. Yeah, it's an unnatural. Yeah,
right, is now you have, I guess, the super villain of all villains, because to be powerful enough to take out a planet, um,
I
and,
mean,
be able
this
to
thing is so big that it
move.
could sweep through. It could sweep through a solar system and destroy the entire solar system. So it could, yeah. So
Yeah, yeah, that's a scary power, and to get to to the reasons why, right? Like, why would
someone create, yeah,
an entity or an organization want to do that, right? And of all places, like to start with Quajon, right? Like, what? I guess, yeah, it's just like now you wanted to
yeah.
start
Because
looking
if
to
someone is
find out.
controlling it, they would have known the effect of moving it near Quajon would have meant that
Hmm.
the moon would have crashed into Quajon. So they like if they can make a wormhole that can blip, they can definitely
Yeah,
have calculated the effect of the wormhole on nearby
right. Yeah,
bodies. So they
yes,
knew it was
yeah,
intentional, right? It was intentional. Um,
yeah,
so
yeah. I mean, if it wasn't, that's like the biggest freaking accident of all time. And I also thought it was curious that the next casualty was a relatively small
yeah,
asteroid belt, or like, or not like, because there were only a few thousand people
about
on that belt. So
twelve
like
hundred. I
population,
think let me see,
yeah.
1206.
Um,
Yeah.
so I thought that was a little bit
I feel
odd.
like if
Like,
it does seem like it's someone testing things, right? Though, right? Like
but if you were testing, you would have started with the belt, the
no,
asteroid
maybe
belt,
the
right? With
first
the
one was a mistake,
1200.
and they were like, oh, let's not make that mistake again. But we want to we still need more data, so let's try something smaller.
Right.
Yeah,
Smaller. That's a fair point. So there's obviously like some crazy scientist behind this, I guess. But yeah, but I thought that was, I mean, it made it easy, like perfect for evacuation
yeah,
purposes, right? Because getting 1200 people off the belt was not a
yeah.
big deal.
It's not a big deal,
They
but
took it
like
in time.
I mean, getting even millions of people isn't a big deal if you have enough time. But 4 hours is what they had. So
Yeah,
yeah,
is not
yeah,
right. Yeah, if you have weeks or
yeah,
months to do it, and but the DMA
yeah,
doesn't give you that, so yeah, like want to see them sort of get to the bottom of this and find out what Tarka
yeah.
knows. Um, He also we didn't mention, but he referenced interrogator Aurelio
Yeah,
a
yeah.
couple times,
Aurelio
and
was
he
the
doesn't.
scientist in the chair
Yeah,
last season. Yeah, 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 yeah.
right. Yeah. And that's sort of how he filters all of
Information. Yeah,
Stamets's
yeah.
data and contributions come through him. Yeah, so they clearly like worked within the Emerald chain. So there's, I'm guessing it's new to the Federation, maybe, um, or maybe someone within the Emerald chain who has amassed that kind of power and technology.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like the technology though. Like they're like the people that they were mentioning are like god level technology people. Like I don't think it would be a person
Yeah,
like the Vulcans, not the Vulcans, but like the Romulans or the Cardassians that are like traveling the universe in ships. This level of technology, you don't need a ship
yeah.
to get around because you're because
No,
they mentioned the Q. Like the Q don't need ships. They can be in the vacuum of space and they're fine. And I imagine that the
yeah.
scene are very similar to that as well. So yeah, the technology here is crazy. I don't know if they're gonna they're gonna pull a previous foe out of the hat or they're just gonna create a new one for this. That is interesting. I'm not sure what the plan there is.
Yeah.
I know that there are some people who didn't want it to be an enemy, but I don't know if it was another natural phenomenon
Mm.
that would just be 2 seasons in a row where it was a natural phenomenon. I hope it's not. I hope it's not like
Yeah.
AI because that was the second season. So the first season was the Klingon. Second season was AI. Third season
Yeah.
was a natural phenomenon, kind of like accident. This doesn't seem like it. I mean, it could be an accident. It could be like a scientist like experiment out of
Hmm.
control. But yeah,
Right. Yeah, that's true. That actually crossed my mind when Stamets and Tarka were doing their science experiment. I'm like, I wonder if this is like somebody's experiment that
yeah.
got out of
Remember
control. Like,
the TNG episode with that guy that alien who had like a baby weird face and he was just did all these. He was just experimenting on the crew. He killed people. Nagila or Nagila or
yeah.
something like that. Yeah. Um,
I don't remember. Yeah, I don't think I
Nagilum,
remember
I think
that
his name
episode.
was. So, yeah, it was like a
But
weird
yeah,
baby face and it just floating in space. So that's what I thought. Like I thought maybe it's just some entity with like immense power, and it's just they or
hmm
are just experimenting, and they don't really
hmm
like the I guess they sense that these are human these are life forms, but the life forms to them would be like ants to us, um, insignificant. Yeah.
insignificant. Yeah, yeah.
So I don't know. It's interesting. I guess we'll see in the next couple episodes. I haven't seen the preview for the next one yet. I'm not sure what the. I think they're actually going to go inside the
I
anomaly.
did.
Now that I did see. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. And you see a little bit of Gray interacting with Zora and like playing a game with Zora, but I think we're gonna see more of what Zora
Yeah.
is capable of and
Yeah,
the extent.
now
Yeah.
that you just reminded me, I did see a little bit of it. I saw the scene from next week on the in the ready room. That didn't seem cool to me. Like Zora recognized that there's an issue, and she's like, "Well, I don't have an explanation yet, so I'm not going to tell the captain." It's like, what?
I was like, that's not your fault, Zora. Yeah, so she's thinking a
Yeah,
lot for herself. Right? I
yeah,
love the name Zora. Like
yeah,
it's a beautiful name. But yeah, so I'm really curious to see
yeah,
where that goes. It makes me think of I don't know if you ever watched
yeah.
Farscape,
Yeah,
where the ship is an actual, yeah, I mean it's not a but the ship is actually a
right.
living being. Um Not that's like
It's
um
like an organic ship. Yeah, kind
and
of like yeah, yeah.
yeah, an organic ship, yes. So yeah, I'm curious to see like yeah, just what considerations the captain, Burnham, and maybe the crew are going to have to make with respect to the ship, and um, if that sort of comes to a head, because I feel like that that's a plot that's sort of been explored before with lesser technologies, right? Because there was an episode, I think it
T-
was
TNG with the
TNG.
exocomps, yeah, the exocomps and
Yeah,
data, and he sacrificed
yeah,
he sacrificed people for the exocomps because he felt that they were sentient beings. Yes, there was a smaller. The scientists who created them didn't think that they
yeah,
were sentient, and they became sentient. Yeah,
right. But they
yeah.
became sentient. So, at what point do are they considered sentient enough, right? That where we respect their autonomy and their agency,
Yeah, and
right?
she's definitely
So,
way past. She's way past the
um,
exocomp. So, um, they were
yeah,
doing. I guess his threshold was they were trying to save their lives, right? Like, but I feel like
mhm,
she's far more advanced than that. So, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
All right. Well, that
But
is what
yeah,
we think about the episode, but we are interested to hear what you guys think. So please comment down below to join the conversation and like and subscribe for more conversations like this. And we will see you next time. All right. Bye.